Raining.
Gonna be what? Hey guys, this is the Physical Freedom Podcast, episode 1. We're gonna get started introducing ourselves kind of with our story and just talk about a few things that have helped us all go towards physical freedom, away from pain and injuries, frequent injuries. We all kind of had a past with that. So introducing the crew here. These are some of my roommates, my fiance Tiffany. My name is Ruben. We got Max Hernandez over there, Senor Chicharito, and then Andres, the Peruvian nightmare in the background. So first health tip I'm going to give you guys is always take a schlonk for the road.
Just eat an egg. Mr. Can't Handle Egg Whites eats an egg.
Literally.
I think we need to start the podcast at that exact moment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That would be cool.
So, would you like to have a certain topic to talk about? Or?
Yeah. We can kind of go around and introduce ourselves, but I guess the first topic is like, I don't know if you noticed, but everything that is recommended by mainstream health, pretty much doing the opposite of it right now. And I find that I'm getting healthier the more I do that. You know, it's like almost like avoiding governmental recommendations, such as, you know, avoiding eggs or limiting the amount of eggs you take, not eating raw food, limiting your red meat, not putting your knees over your toes, not rounding your back. Like all these things I'm doing, and I'm improving my ability to do them. And I find that I'm actually healing. Is that something that you kind of noticed? You guys have kind of noticed as well, or am I just tripping?
Yeah, I think my experience as well. Not that everything must be done the opposite, but if you were to do the complete opposite of what the mainstream says, you won't be in the worst position, essentially. Whether that's with training or with food or other lifestyle factors. For me, it was mostly with diet, kind of going the mainstream health route with eat lots of greens and fruits and nuts and seeds and minimize meat, dairy, and eggs. And that, over the course of like 5 years, led to a pretty slow but consistent downfall in health. And then as soon as I reintroduced the meat, dairy, and eggs, specifically, health just kind of came back really quick. I gained a lot of weight, good weight, felt great. Brain kind of returned on, probably gained a few IQ points overnight. Yeah, so I've found that to be true as well.
Yeah, I think the holistic health perspective is what you're talking about. Like, the flip of mainstream is telling me this, and I did this to get results I've experienced across a couple different domains, especially, I think, physically, like injuries, which was the biggest thing that derailed me. I was thinking I was going to be some kind of like professional athlete or college basketball player. Maybe delusional because I was a 5'8" white guy, but I was like, I'm going to the NBA. And the mentality that I took on when I got injured was, I need to find somebody who's going to heal me, or my joint can't heal. Like, eventually, after so many doctor's visits, I was just like, the joint isn't going to heal. Like, I'm fucked, basically. I'm screwed. Whereas the approach that I've learned through ATG and through connecting with Keegan Smith and all of these other people who are teaching that there's a way to train the body to heal, I think that paradigm alone is like liberating, because the majority of people are in pain thinking that there's some magical doctor or some magical pill, you know, that's whether it's joint pain or if it's any kind of health issue you're having. Like, people are looking for the pill, the single answer, when the reality is that the only way forward is confronting the pain itself and not like playing victim to it. Yeah. So I think that's probably the biggest one. And obviously I could go into rabbit holes of nutrition, psychology, but for actual pain in the body, that's like the big one. You can heal your body.
Yeah. And a lot of the answers are like within. You know, like blood flow is one of the biggest healing modalities. And like that's not a pill, that's not like a doctor, that's not anybody acting on your body. It's you acting on your own body and using what it's already got within it to heal. You know, like of course we have to put in things that are gonna help that blood flow, bring nutrients and healing to our joints and body. But it's almost like you have to take those actions. Like nobody's gonna pump out 500 reps of tricep extensions to fix your elbow. It's something you kind of have to do on your own. So it's very esoteric as opposed to the exoteric view of like surgery and painkillers and all these things that are recommended because, well, in my opinion, because they can sell them to you. But what do you think?
No, I think you're right. And my intro into all of this was really just being introduced to knees over toes guy. I had lost 100 pounds already, but still found that working caused pain and working out also caused pain. Just from trying to squat, bench, and deadlift, I would constantly get knee, back, ankle pain. And then realizing that you can overcome joint pain just through movement and being patient with your body really kind of facilitated this mindset of, okay, if I can heal my body, my joints through movement, can I heal metabolic dysfunction or acne or hormones and stress and all these things through other modalities? What else is there? And so from that point on, we kind of just went down this rabbit hole of nutrition and health. And that kind of led us to the animal-based diet, which was another catalyst for just transforming, really, because ever since then it's been like we're getting healthier and healthier every year that we age. And how many people these days can say that they're getting healthier as they're getting older? Mm-hmm. And that's really been my whole thing this entire time, is just how can I make myself younger as I age? And really what I want to do is teach people to do the same. And not really to shove, my thoughts and opinions on nutrition down anyone's throat, because I don't believe there is one diet, but I do think to make it simple, just eating foods from nature is going to get you as close to healthy as possible. And movement, sunlight, and eating whole foods. So, and that is the opposite of what they tell you to do, really, because they always want to sell you something else, some other modality that was made in a lab or that gets a new doctor a boat, so
yeah, well, I do. I mean, doctors, the general advice is movement and whole natural foods. I think it's more like the levels that they ask you to do, because like there's so many excuses for like, oh, a calorie. It's like the principles behind it is what they're kind of like reversing, right? Like they tell you to eat whole natural foods, but they actually tell you to eat spinach and kale. And what are some other things, Andres? Like, what is a conventional advice? Because I never really followed it when it came to nutrition. I kind of went from the standard American diet to like eating whole foods. So
yeah, I think you said this, like whole foods is the advice. It's just like which I shouldn't say that entirely. They advocate for whole foods, but they also blame a lot of our problems on certain whole foods. So it's like these whole foods are good, these whole foods are bad. And personally, I think if a food is truly whole, then it's not necessarily bad. It might be less good for some people compared to others. Like if you're from more like Nordic regions of the world, then you might not need or benefit from lots of tropical fruits, and then vice versa. If you're more from close to the equator, you probably don't need to be eating like 500 grams of fat or whatever.
Yeah.
But the mainstream advice is kind of like all whole foods are good except for animal-based whole foods. And then we can go into why that is and more the conspiracy theory stuff. Not really a theory though. And the advice is very much plant whole foods are superior. And now we're almost shifting into a season of like. Now we're almost shifting into a season. I would call it a season of convincing the next generation that whole foods isn't necessarily the answer. Because I remember when I was growing up, the answer was all whole foods. Like protein powder kind of didn't really fit into the mix, and now we're kind of moving into an era of like protein bars that are made artificially in the lab. People are actually convinced that is healthy. And I don't really think that was the case 10 or 20 years ago, but now it kind of is the case. Like the next generation is coming up thinking that a steak is unhealthy, but a chocolate protein bar is healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to continue to go in that direction, at least in the mainstream side, where give it 2 or 3 more generations and people will think whole foods altogether are not only unhealthy for their body, but unhealthy for the planet. They'll say that growing even soy and wheat is bad for the planet, and consuming, what's it called? Like lab synthesized carbs, protein, and fat is the way.
Yeah.
Even like, it's not even going to be coming from a plant in any way, shape, or form in another generation or two. So,
what's crazy is it's the propaganda that's kind of making people think that way. It's almost like we're being told what to believe, and then not aware enough to see that it's actually affecting us negatively. Like I feel like the reason that holistic nutrition and agriculture and like holistic health in general is so related to like spirituality and mindfulness and raising your awareness level is that you have to have a high enough awareness level to see that what you're being told is different from what's actually getting results for people or improving health or your own health even. That if you don't have that awareness, you're not, like if you haven't realized that you're putting your knees over your toes is actually what's helping your knee better as opposed to what you're being told to do, which is doing 90-degree squats, then you're not going to be able to see the truth. So it's almost like you have to have that certain level of awareness to notice what actually works, and that's why they're so like linked well together. It's like only the people that have taken the time to look within and follow their intuition and go against the grain are the ones that are able to like, I guess, improve their health naturally, as opposed to using these other modalities that we're always being sold and told will work.
So you have, right now we've like talked about the body,
yeah,
and then nutrition,
yeah,
and someone struggling with pain. There's the idea is circulating more and more now that, okay, we can confront the body. There are tools and there are ways of knowing how to train the body that you can actually heal. Some people it's not necessarily working,
yeah,
or that's only one component of holistic health, and you've obviously dove down so many different components. What is the second thing? Okay, like if we say that training is like critical, right? Is nutrition the second thing? And what else would you say is included in that, or do you think like just helping people understand those two things, training and nutrition alone, could give them some incredible results? Because like if the training program isn't working, which for me was the case when I first joined the ATG network,
mm-hmm.
It was, hey guys, I'm doing all these ATG knees over toes movements and my body's not healing.
Yeah.
And then going to the carnivore diet for like a consistent amount of time actually helped me build momentum, whether that was placebo effect or partially that I was giving my body actual nutrients that were allowing the tissues to recover.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what the question is, but like nutrition and pain, physically training, like how do they correlate in your own perspective?
Just nutrition and pain?
Yeah, nutrition and movement, I guess, because
yeah.
like the holistic health is this big embodiment of a bunch of different areas, but those are kind of the two we focused on so far.
Right. Nutrition and movement go hand in hand because you're kind of giving your body the building blocks for it to create. But the thing is, like, those two together are so linked to the mind that it's almost like you can't ignore
the mental.
The mental either, because everything is mental. Everything starts in the mind. Like your first thought, you're not going to just randomly start moving better or eating better without first educating yourself and then realizing you have to do better. So it all starts as a thought, like, okay, I want to get healthier. That was my first thought. It's like, I need to do something to improve my health. And then from there, everything kind of started, like, I had to follow that thought, and it started leading me to researching more and more about it. And then it's like, okay, now I can actually start taking action towards it. So it all begins with the thought. So I would say, like, first thing is, like, make a determined decision to go, I need to improve my health. okay, let me start investigating it. Okay, what am I doing wrong? Or, hire a coach, like somebody that's already been through it and that has gotten the results that you want to get. So I would say like those two are super. Movement and nutrition are going to be
And then
2 and 3.
You put the mind.
The mind is first because
Mind is first.
everything starts with that. You're not gonna like. There's so many people that aren't seeking to improve that. To improve their health, and it's because they think that they're like, oh, my health doesn't have anything to do with my. Like they're like, oh, I don't play sports, so like, why am I gonna exercise? Like, I don't play sports, so why do I have to watch my food? I really enjoy this food, so why am I gonna change it? They have to realize that everything is linked to the mind, your nutrition and your movement. All those things help your mind function better. And like there's some very smart people that don't exercise or take care of their body or watch what they eat.
There's an interesting paradigm you just made me think about. Maybe Tiff would have some thoughts on this too. Of like, I remember when I was younger, people would often say, and Andres, you probably have some thoughts on this. Like, people would say, "Oh, you're young." Like I think when I first started eating healthy, I was like 16 or something. Yeah. And I started doing the Google research, like you guys said. Like, what does Google tell you? Okay, oats, chia seeds, spinach. Do this every day. And then I remember people telling me like, "You're young. Like, don't worry about your body. Like, you can worry about that when you get sick, when you're older or whatever." Like, that paradigm alone, I feel like a lot of people actually hold on to that. You're young, your body's healthy, you shouldn't care about this stuff. But like, Tiff, what do you think why is that a not the correct way of looking at things?
Well, I think a part of it has to do with how we view health, though, because they say, you're young and you're healthy, but I've also seen 10-year-olds that have ADHD, they can't touch their toes, they're out of breath from running around, and they've only been in the school system for, 6 years at that point? So it's just, they categorize health as just being able to get through your day without collapsing in pain or dying. Like, that's not really health. Health to me would be being able to thrive and do everything you want to do and more: squatting, lifting, running, being mentally sane. And there are a lot of kids these days that aren't. They don't have good attention spans. Like I said, ADHD is becoming like more prevalent than ever. So I think with how modern we're becoming in terms of like sitting all day, being on our phones and all of that, it's just like, that's not healthy. So it doesn't matter if you're young or you're old. We should be prioritizing health no matter what age you are, because the times have changed so much. Things are so convenient now. We don't have to go out and hunt for our food. We don't have to take a shit in a deep squat anymore. So it's like, where are we going to make up for that? It was kind of like that. I don't know if it was an article or a tweet or something, or maybe it was in the Pulse, where Ben was saying like, we don't do these primitive things anymore, so we have to make up for it. And I think that's true. I think that's even true for kids and even as teenagers. It's just important now that we take care of our health, because things are so like ass backwards from where they were hundreds of years ago. And that's my take on it, is it doesn't matter how old you are. You should have some kind of awareness of your health. And I think that just stems from like, we're not educating kids on how things were hundreds of years ago. I didn't give thought to how my ancestors looked for food until I was like 23 years old.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. I never even thought that we were sitting in excess until I was 23 years old. So I think a lot of it is awareness, like you said, Ruben, is just like being aware so that you can take the necessary steps to improve your health, or become aware that you're not as healthy as you think you are, because we have such a skewed reality of what health really is.
Yeah, and I think tying back into the mindset thing, potentially part of the reason why kids, and I'm not saying all kids, as Tiff pointed out, like there are kids 10 years old that can't touch their toes and they're out of breath from just walking, but potentially a reason why many kids maybe in the previous generations that would eat garbage but still were extremely athletic, full of energy. Part of it could just be the puberty and they're going through the growth phase, but it could also just be not only the internal mindset but the reinforced mindset from the people around them saying like, oh, you're young, of course you can jump off a 10-foot wall and be fine and eat a Snickers bar and take a 2-minute nap and then run 10 miles. Like that's the kind of mental environment that's reinforced in kids. So if we apply that to adults, like Ruben was saying, mindset is number one, or mind flex, as Max would like to say, then we can kind of placebo ourselves into thinking that we're doing the right thing. And I think we've all experienced it probably many times. Like, we all recently went to a wedding where we thought the donuts were tallow fried, and it turns out they weren't tallow fried, but I didn't really feel I did eat 8 of them, so I didn't feel great, but like, if I ate them knowing that they were seed oil fried, I probably would have convinced myself that they were way worse for me than they were, and maybe I probably would have kept eating them. But
what's the mindset of the public right now for adults, right?
The flip side of that is the mindset of the public for adults is, once you're, who knows what the average person would say now, once you're 25, 30, 35, it's like the beginning of the end of your knees, of your back, of your brain, of your reaction time, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's super important, regardless of how healthy or unhealthy you think you are or aren't. Right now, if you can convince yourself to go quite far, like, even if you, like Max was pointing out, you just Google what is healthy and you start eating oatmeal and chia seeds. Like, I personally believe that is truly it's not the wrong first step to take. Like, you're going to be going from eating a McDonald's bacon, egg, and cheese to maybe just oatmeal and chia seeds. Sure, it has glyphosate. Sure, it has other things. But you're making that first step that we probably all hit at one point in our life that led to something else. And you're also convincing yourself mentally that you're doing the right thing for your body. Yeah. Even if objectively you're not, doesn't really matter. You're on the right path.
Right.
So,
and we all know the power of the placebo.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's been plenty of studies for that. I think that's the first thing to start with is mindset, like visualizing what your life could be like if you were healthy. Because... And AI will allow you to do that. Like, you can take a picture of yourself and be like, all right, what do I look like with abs? Or what do I look like at my peak health? And you can just put that on your refrigerator wall, and that'll help you steer yourself towards that. So mindset's number one, but that's why we have to prioritize our brain. Like, our brain is like, thoughts are proven not to occur in your brain, right? Like, they happen in the ether, like from above your head, if you believe in spirit. But our brain is a receptor for that. Like, our crown chakra is a receptor for that. So you have to make sure you have a really good receptor so you can meet more of yourself, embody more of yourself in this realm. So taking care of that brain is one of the most important things. And as we know, like, movement is one of the best things you can do for your mental health. And one of the best things you can do to have the energy to move, to have the desire the energy to take care of your body, not only the desire, but the energy to take care of your body is to feed your body what it needs to have that energy. So, like, proper nutrients, enough sunlight, enough grounding, electric, negative ions, and we can get into all those rabbit holes, but basically giving your body...
I want to add in something there, because the whole idea of what An just brought up with the mind flex stuff is basically how you started the podcast. Is you said, this is what I've been told, and everything that I'm doing that's different is actually helping me.
Right.
And the mind flex idea is that even the words that we use are basically, they're intentionally there to keep you in a certain place. For example, like, the word mindset means mind, which is activity of your brain, and set meaning stuck in place. So mindset as a term itself just means the activity of your brain is staying in a place. But what you're saying is that I know you're not using the exact words, but basically what you're saying is all of these things, grounding, trying the animal-based diet, learning knees over toes, those are all mind flexes, because they require you to step back and be like, okay, wait a second. I need to be flexible here, because the way that I was set might not actually be the way that it is.
Yeah.
So you listed a few there, but, like, what are some of the biggest, like, flexes that you've had to do that have helped you become a healthier person? you know, like you obviously you listed the grounding and, but yeah, even in terms of the body, in terms of nutrition.
Yeah, getting sunlight. I would say the biggest one is like realizing that my breathing is not optimal. And realizing how important the breath is. Fixing teaching myself how to breathe properly, breathing through the diaphragm, and just going back and realizing like all these things that actually kept me from doing that, whether it's just like anxiety or building up like certain mental blocks where it's like I would always suck my belly in because when I was obese, like I would always try to appear skinnier in front of people or just in pictures and things like that, so I would suck in. And my body kind of just started doing that for breathing. So I would breathe always with my chest and my upper respiratory muscles. So it's like reteaching my body how to breathe. And that's almost like you have to let go of your ego going like, oh, I can breathe. I know how to breathe. Like I'm breathing all the time. What do you mean? But it's like having to reteach your body how to do things the way it's naturally born doing them to help you kind of like calm down and like just improving my breath was like huge for my health because I'm able to like relax now. Whereas before, like I was always kind of stressed out, always had the kind of like this anxiety, and I didn't know why. And like breathing was kind of like a mind flex for me because it's like, oh, there's a whole another rabbit hole of something that I thought I was doing well, but I can do so much better. Another one I guess is like learning new skills. So, I mean, it can apply to everything, but just an example that we all kind of have is juggling, right? It's like, hey, I can actually teach myself this thing that I thought I would never be able to do. And it just started just like everything else does with one simple drill, one simple regression, and then start improving from there. Other things I guess would just be like cooking. Instead of having to depend on other people for my food, I started cooking on my own and kind of like sourcing ingredients locally and organic ingredients, things that I knew would actually be better for my body. And then realizing that I don't know everything about cooking either. It's like there's so much to learn about it. Like actually investing in books or like watching videos or taking classes for learning how to cook better was definitely a mind flex.
I feel like that's
for
a
me
good
also.
one to stay on because Tiff and Andres are both like pretty deep into the cooking stuff. But or lack of cooking. I mean, I feel like that's something that we've all been experimenting with, so it's something we could probably talk about.
Yeah.
But I mean, you were basically saying that you had to become flexible in your understanding that, you know, the foods that you were getting, like you had to kind of take full responsibility, saying, you know what, maybe I need to go find a farm or I need to go cook for myself instead of going to Chipotle and get my Chipotle burrito bowl or whatever. That was me for sure. And I know Andres worked at Chipotle, but I was always like in bulking season. I was eating Chipotle like 4 times a week. I was eating whatever my family cooked for me. Yeah. And I didn't understand the concept. It's so simple, but when I think Saladino was the first one that said it to me, it was like, or that I heard him say it. He didn't tell me personally, but he's
my bud Sal.
Like the foods in the inside of the grocery store should be avoided essentially, and stay on the perimeter because that's where the whole foods are. That's where the real foods are. And I found actually I had to join a co-op, and I had to find like a place where I could buy fresh fruit, meat, organ meats, things like that. So I think the point that I wanted to make is that there's an immense amount of resistance to actually be healthy. Like for me to actually be healthy, I had to go out of my way to find a website. Well, first read a book, find a website that was in that book that showed me how I could connect with a local farmer where I could get actual high quality foods. So it's not like it's just this easy, I'm going to be healthy and I made that decision and then it just falls into your lap. You have to actually invest time and energy into figuring out how you're going to make it happen. But yeah, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, and it's kind of the opposite of how it used to be. I've thought about this where nowadays you have to look out for the poisons that are man-made, and then back in the day you have to look out for the poisons or dangers, however you want to see it, that were like naturally made, like the berries that are going to kill you.
Yeah.
Don't try to hunt for mountain lions because you probably won't get a good catch. Like you know, you should hunt for these animals that are easier, whatever it is. And now it's the total opposite. And I remember Ben had an article, one of his diet articles from a while back, talking about how, like, it's not that we're mentally weaker than our ancestors. Our ancestors would have gladly drunk like the orange Fanta slushy if they had it available to them. Like they would be just as mentally weak or strong as we are today, because we're driven to find these high calorie foods, these sugars and these fats. And if they could easily access it for like 70 cents at the corner store, then they definitely would have done it as well.
Yeah.
And then kind of touching with the cooking thing, kind of back to the idea of like oatmeal and chia seeds, I think is a totally viable first step, because it's getting you on a path that at least you weren't on before. Like, you don't have to be perfect with the cooking, like just nailing the basics, like learn how to cook a piece of chicken or rice, or how to properly sear a steak so it's not well done. Yeah, and then sticking to the perimeter, and then finding like-minded people is also huge, because if you're, I mean, I've lived in a lot of different environments throughout college and then after college, and who you live with, it's the whole phrase of like what's the phrase, like
5 best friends.
Yeah, you are your 5 best friends, or like your habits are like your 5 best friends. That applies to making money, to eating, to working out, to bedtimes, to conversations. Like it applies to everything. So if you just put yourself in an environment of people that are going to eat healthier, or at least like are on that similar wavelength, you're just naturally going to eat healthier. So that could even just look like joining a gym, joining a local running club. And if you're in a running club, they're almost bound to be eating whole foods, whether it's animal-based whole foods or plant-based whole foods. At least it's on the path of like opting for an actual food that grows out of the ground and not like an artificial imitation. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, it's really good. So I guess just to drive us back on topic, actually, I want to go back to what she was saying about the kids, like how I don't have kids yet, but I've worked with a lot of kids, and I see how parents kind of tell their kids, like, hey, you're young, go ahead and have that ice cream. I feel like it should be the opposite, because during your developmental stages, like, you're setting up the rest of your life, you know, like between 1 to 10. It's really 1 through 5 is the most important, but I wish my parents had kind of looked at it this way, because then I would have gotten more nutrient-dense foods, more of the things I need to build my body and my brain properly, as opposed to just like eating junk food. You know what I mean? And a lot of parents still do well with that, and although they do give them like treats every once in a while, and that's honestly really good. And you probably shouldn't deprive your kids of certain things. I mean, depends on how you think about it.
Because there's a good chance they'll rebel. So
Yeah.
if you're too strict, then
yeah, there's always a fine line between all of these things, but I would say that's probably the most important times. Is like, that's when you should be the most encouraged to move your body, so that it develops properly. And same thing for your brain. It's not like just because you're young, it's not gonna affect you later on down the line. Because for me, like, if I had more movement as opposed to just laying around from the time I was 5 to like 10, I would probably be a lot stronger now. I wouldn't have never had knee pain, you know, or at least not at the age that I did, or back pain, and I would have probably never been as obese as I got to at that point. You know, if I had that influence of my parents being like, hey, you got to move, hey, you got to eat whole foods. But I guess kind of what I was gonna circle around to is like, okay, so what are 5 steps you can take to start working towards physical freedom, towards moving towards physical freedom as opposed to staying away? I think we've already all agreed on mindset, right? Being number 1. It's like, first believe that you can, and visualize what it would be like for you to have physical freedom to do the things you love without fear of injury or fear of pain. I guess number 2 would then be move your body, right? Find a way of movement that allows you to work towards longevity. I would definitely recommend resistance training for pretty much everybody. Like, even if you're older, you can still use resistance training at your own level, like find regressions for that. And we could do a whole podcast on that itself, because we're all, you know, personal trainers, and we've all dealt with our own issues in our physical bodies. But I would say, yeah, movement. Find a sport that you like, and find a way to do resistance training that's at your level that can help you work towards longevity. ATG plug-in on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then number 3, give your body the building blocks that it needs to. What are some of the basics here? Nutritionally, what are some of the basics here? Definitely sunlight. To help your body create vitamin D. It's the one hormone that we produce, but we need sunlight to produce it. You can always supplement on that. Magnesium, right? That's zinc. That's going to be found in most red meat, most meats in general, and as well as vegetables. So giving your body the minerals it needs, giving your body nutrients such as omega-3s, vitamin D. What else? Minerals. What else are some of the basics for nutrition?
Proper hydration, whether it's through clean water or through the foods themselves.
Yeah.
I think personally, and kind of playing around with this idea recently of like if you can get water from food, that might be better. Doesn't mean like, drink heavy cream because it has water in it. But if you can find hydrating foods like fruits, certain vegetables, the less you cook your meat, the more water is retained within it. Things like that. Raw milk is great.
Yeah.
And then whatever you do buy that is whole foods, like try your best to get the highest quality. I know I stressed myself out about that in the past, where I thought like if I didn't get organic, grass-fed, I was like killing myself, which probably caused more stress than the actual damaging things within the food.
Yeah.
So just do your best, but don't financially, screw yourself over thinking that you need to get it. As you grow financially, which is a whole different topic, you can always slowly upgrade your foods accordingly.
Yeah.
Or you could shop your foods based off of the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen list. There's a list that this organization puts out every year that it's the 15 cleanest foods that have the least amount of pesticides on them, and then the Dirty Dozen is the 12 that have the most. So like one example would be strawberries are at the very top of the Dirty Dozen list. If you eat strawberries regularly, that's the one change you could make, is just buying them organic. And then at the top of the Clean 15, I think it's either like bananas or avocados. So if you eat avocados, or if you don't eat avocados regularly, you can get those non-organic and you would still be fine. And that's something that you can apply to your groceries. The stuff you eat all the time, buy it organic. The stuff you don't eat every single day, you can get it non-organic and save money there.
Yeah. So on the topic of hydration, definitely agree with the juicing or getting water from your food as well. But I want to say probably the ideal is getting spring water. So you can go to findaspring.com to find water near you. Most of the time it's free. You can go grab a glass jar and get it there. But if you don't have a spring near you, the next best thing you can do is try to get spring water, ideally from a glass or from a plastic bottle. It is what it is. We can go into the dangers of plastics and avoiding phthalates and some of the other things in the plastic packaging later on, but I definitely think that spring water is ideally better than Dasani or some of the other bottled water like Fiji water, simply because it's going to have more minerals in it. If you're just taking distilled water in, it's not going to be as hydrating for you. It might actually dehydrate you because you need the minerals in the water. Spring water is ideal because it's moving, living water, ideally fresh from a spring. There's things such as water chargers, but personally I haven't experimented with that, so I can't give a recommendation on those. And then if you can't do that, because it is expensive, do what we do, which is most of the time we just have a reverse osmosis water filter. And that will take out the fluoride and some of the other harmful things such as copper that are in tap water. If anything, I would just try to get you guys to stop drinking tap water. Like even bottled water would be better, simply because there's so many harmful chemicals in it. And you can go online and look up what's in your local water if you want some data on that also. So that takes care of 3 for nutrition. I guess number 4 for me would be breath work and mindfulness, like meditation. Simply meditation to practice sitting in silence, which is going to help you raise your awareness level. It just helps you get rid of some of that brain fog and helps you think clearer, as well as just in general reconnecting to I would say reconnecting to nature, because you kind of able to tune into more about what's going on around you. And if you can meditate in nature, it's so helpful just for kind of quieting the mind and being able to actually figure out what you want to do with your day. A lot of times I just feel like I have so many things going on in my head that if I don't meditate for that day, I'm not going to be able to get as many things done. So like, it's a productivity hack. It also helps you just kind of like calm down and get yourself back into that parasympathetic nervous system functioning that allows you to tune in better to your thoughts and to your own spirit. And breath work, just to, do the same thing. Really, it's just breathing better is going to help you have more energy. It's going to help you optimize your cardio, your endurance for everyday things such as hiking, walking, just anything, any sport, especially if you do sport. Definitely practice breath work and train the muscles that help you breathe better, that allow your diaphragm to exhale and inhale. Do you guys have anything to take on mindfulness, breath work?
Yeah, I wanted to add to just your framework that you're using here to like just my own input on the 4 things you've listed so far.
Yeah.
Just in a brief, I'll try to do it in like 1 or 2 sentences for each. So like, first thing you said was mind. You have to decide that you want to be healthy. For me, I think there's a lot of people, there's going to be maybe some resistance. There's a reason that, you go on a diet for 1 month and then you go back. So looking into other potential modalities in psychology or working with coaches or therapists or things like that, if I could tell my past self anything, go do that right away. Don't wait. Don't have the ego that you can't work with somebody. If there's limiting beliefs, that's going to step in the way more than anything. 2, start moving. Start as light as possible. You don't need to become this. You don't need to go from not moving to heavy lifting, powerlifting guy who's like posting his training all over the place, and like just move the body in any way that you can that doesn't hurt. Or if it does hurt, try to make it so that at the end of your workout it doesn't hurt anymore. Like, I know when I was in so much pain I couldn't even pull an empty sled without my knees screaming.
Yeah.
So just start moving, but be so gentle with yourself. And the third one was nutrition, which is tough to sum up in like 1 or 2 sentences, but I would say, like you said, optimize what the cell, like think about it on a cellular level. What does the cell need? And like you said, sunlight. Nothing in the world grows without sunlight. That's what Keegan Smith says. He says sunlight and water, so that's interesting. And eat more meat. Like, literally, if I could tell my past self anything, don't be afraid of meat, because meat is one of the most bioavailable sources of nutrition that you can put in your body. And the less you cook it, it seems the easier it's digested.
Yeah.
The fourth one, what were you saying? Breath work?
Yeah, breath work, meditation.
Yeah.
Mindfulness practice.
Mindfulness has been game changer for me. Not only on like the focus. I think that's the biggest one. Like getting people into it is realizing that this would be a mindset thing. We've been trained to be distracted. So you get good at whatever you practice, and we're masters of distraction. We spend all day on social media. We spend all day distracting ourselves with everything. So meditation at a simple level is just your ability to train your focus muscle. And then breath work in 1 to 2 sentences is breathe through your nose and shut your mouth. Only use your mouth for eating and your nose for breathing.
All right, we're gonna get an argument about that one.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. No. I agree
you
with
do the mouth breathing stuff with the blue thing.
Well, you
Talk
can
about that. Like, what is
Yeah.
that? How did you get into that? Because there are other modalities of breathing.
Yeah, so breath work encompasses more than just nose breathing. Yes, you should breathe through your nose whenever you're calm. You should always breathe through your nose while you're asleep. You want to train your body to breathe with your nose because it's the most optimal way to do it. But it's not the most important aspect of breathing. Ideally, you want to retrain your body to breathe with the diaphragm, and that's a lot of what nose breathing does, because it forces you to breathe in slower, which forces you to breathe with your diaphragm, as opposed to and retrains your body to breathe with your diaphragm. So that is one way to do it. But you can also, there's physical exercises you can do, and that's kind of more what I specialize in, is just having people, reteaching people how to breathe with their diaphragm as opposed to like with the upper respiratory muscles. And like Wim Hof says, like, just breathe. Like, a lot of people don't even breathe. So if you can't breathe through your nose because you have a deviated septum, or somebody's, some sort of injury, broke your nose, you can breathe through your mouth and you'll get really effective at it. It's more about focusing on breathing with the lower belly. And then mouth taping is a hack that has helped me a lot with being able to only breathe through my nose. You can tape your mouth at night, of course, if you're able to breathe through your nose, so that your body does it while you're sleeping. So you can even train your body to do that, to nose breathe while you're asleep. But yeah, so ideally you want to optimize how much circumference you have in your diaphragm to breathe, and that's what the teachings that I've worked on learn. And then that way, whenever you are breathing through your mouth, when you're tired, whenever you're doing a sport, or let's say you're fighting, so the method that I specialize in is called Breathing for Warriors. It's developed by Dr. Verlis Vronic, and basically it tells you that you should be able to breathe through your diaphragm no matter how stressed you are, even if you have to like breathe through your mouth, or like say somebody punched your nose and you can't, like those type of situations, or like, yeah, basically you're trying to get as much oxygen as possible. Sometimes nose breathing isn't optimal for that because you can't, like, your nose is stuffy or something, so you might have to breathe through your mouth. You want to be able to do it while at the same time breathing with your diaphragm, because if you start breathing with this up here, it's not going to get as much oxygen in, even if you're breathing with your mouth. But if you're able to do here, you have a lot more flexibility around the diaphragm than most people do. Like, a lot of people are really rigid in that area just because they don't use those muscles. So you want to train the muscles around your lungs, because we actually have 10 pounds of muscles around our lungs that are responsible for inhaling and exhaling, right? Not just your diaphragm. Like, we're talking about your intercostal muscles, your abdominal muscles. You actually want to be able to use those to fully exhale and fully inhale, so you get fresh oxygen and you get more oxygen into your alveoli, the air sacs within your lungs, so that you're able to take in more oxygen into your blood and, yeah, refuel the body. So I guess that's like my intermission on that. Fifth, I think, would be community and like belief in God, in my opinion. I think that's, you can't have health without having a belief in God, whichever God you choose to worship, because if we don't believe that there's a life after this life, then it's like, I can just do whatever I can get away with whatever I want. You have no moral compass, and in a sense you're kind of doing yourself harm if you believe in that there's a life after this, that that we're going to pass on somewhere, that there's that what you do in life matters, then you're going to have a much better moral compass. You're probably going to tend to be healthier, because to be able to do things that are better, to choose things that are at a higher vibration, you have to be healthy. So like, this is also going to help keep you on track. It's not going to have you as anxious. It's not going to make you be like, not give a fuck about anything. When you don't give a fuck about anything, and I've been there, I've been an atheist. When you don't give a fuck about things, you don't have a reason to be better. Like, you're just going to say, fuck it. Like, I'm not going to want to help other people, because it's like, why does it matter? Like, they're not, like, we're not linked. There's nothing there. But if you have that higher belief, for some reason, I believe that it makes you healthier as a person. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Like, spirituality and community being that fifth principle. It's just like having, like, community, like being, like having friends, having people that you trust in, that you believe in. And community and spirituality don't necessarily have to be the same thing, because you can have, like, I have different beliefs than Andreas or Max do, but we all believe in like a higher spirit too. What do you think?
No, go ahead.
My voice is all shaky.
Yeah.
With the community side, yeah, I've experienced kind of both extremes. I did a bit of traveling, and a lot of it was solo, and just not having. Well, I think we've all probably heard the expression or the idea about the difference between being alone and being lonely. You can be around people and be lonely. You can be alone and not be lonely. And during traveling, when I was by myself and also lonely, like, it doesn't really matter how much you eat perfectly or you train perfectly or even getting outside and nature and movement and all that stuff. Like, if you don't really have that social circle to come back to, it's quite difficult to feel healthy. Even if you're giving your body everything it needs, you're not necessarily giving your joy or your laughter or all of that everything it needs. And then more so on the God side, I also was atheist. I grew up Catholic and then became atheist. Maybe it was always atheist. I went to church, but I fell asleep most of the time, but didn't really care. And then in the recent, probably year and a half, 2 years, kind of found the belief in God, and it's been incredibly powerful. It's like, probably the reason you put it together with community is because it is a community in a sense, but it's just a community of two, you and God. And it's like, no matter what happens, like, if I lost everyone around me, if I lost everything around me, you can always have that communication with God. You can choose to have it whenever you want. It could be the best day of your life, the worst day of your life. It's always there. So yeah, it's been extremely powerful. Only very recently have I been praying every night, and it's like I just described. It's just having that connection with that internal community. That's been really powerful.
Yeah, the community thing, I think, as you were just discussing it, I realized I wouldn't be in this car if it wasn't for the idea of community. And I wouldn't know any of what I know about health if it wasn't for community. Like, I had found Wim Hof, like you were saying, start breathing.
Yeah.
That helped me, just to start breathing, finding Wim Hof. But it wasn't until I found a community of like-minded people who I looked at and it was like, holy crap, these people have figured something out. Like, these people are all stronger than me, all healthier. What are they doing? And then that's when I started finding out, okay, most of these people are eating a lot of meat. Most of these people are actually, like, some of them talk about breathing. What is that about? Some of them are really, like, spiritual. They believe in God. Like, I was an atheist as well. So every single thing we've talked about today, I've only been re-exposed to and transformed in my own life because I had these like-minded people to look up to who had achieved something with their health that I hadn't. So it's like the Ben Patrick principle of success leaves clues. It's not Ben. I mean, that's a big paradigm that everybody talks about, but it's so true. If you can find a community of people, it goes back to what you were saying about your 5 best friends. You're going to become those people. You're going to learn what they know. So that's probably the most powerful thing, is establishing some sense of community.
I think we're social creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need people to talk to, friends. Like, we need. I mean, you can have that within your family, but at the same time, like, just a lone family off in a jungle is not going to be as happy as a family living in a community. I think a lot of community and spirituality is like reuniting with God, with the all, because in a way, and these are just some of my beliefs. It's like God kind of is living through all of us to be able to experience love, like that community, like that love between one another. Because if God was just him or itself, if the all were just one, which it was at one point, it wouldn't have been able to experience what it's like to love another. It wouldn't have been able to experience that sense of community and friendship and the feeling of the experience of the material reality. So it broke itself into all of us and everything that we see, just in order to experience that. to experience healing. Like, you can't experience healing without experiencing trauma, and that was the first trauma that was ever created, was kind of like the splitting into all these other beings, if that makes sense. So in my belief, it's like you can't really have community without spirituality, because all healing is a matter of reuniting with the all, and you can't reunite with the with the all if you're not connecting with other people as well. And yeah, like, it also helps you find health. Like you said, if you find a coach, you're gonna join their community of people that they're helping, and that's just gonna help you increase like your determination and help you improve your drive, because you're motivating, you're pushing each other. In a way, even competing as a part of community, like setting standards for each other, or like being like, okay, who's gonna do the most 10 sets of one military press? It's like, even that's kind of like pushing and holding each other accountable.
Yeah, and I think also lastly for me with all of these 5, although they are in a rough order, if you are someone who feels like you're capable of implementing like number 1 and 4, and you, for whatever reason, don't think you can do 2, 3, and 5 yet, like, just do 1 and 4. Like, you don't have to, you don't need to go in the sequential order of 1 through 5. And then I also wanted to throw one more thing that kind of relates to all of it, and this is just the general ability to change your mind about things. And I think the more, it's not that you have to force it, but the more you're open-minded to being wrong about things, the faster you'll progress in all of this. I think if I was more open-minded, because just in brief, when I was vegan, I basically thought I had it all figured out. Like, I thought all of nutrition had been figured out at that point. Like, the smartest doctors knew the truth, period, end of story, and that was truth. And as soon as a crack kind of broke and it was like, maybe that's not the case, then everything sort of dominoed from there, with food, training, spirituality, finances, everything changed. So the more you're able to change your mind about things, or at least open up yourself up to the possibility that you've been wrong about something, the faster you'll progress, I think, in everything.
Yeah, I really like that, Andres, because that's so important too, is just knowing how to change your mind about things. Because at one point I was kind of the same way. I thought calorie counting was it, and that's all you needed to know or do. It didn't really matter what you ate. As long as you're within that certain amount of calories, you're healthy. And just unlearning that has been so huge. Back when we were talking about, what was that biggest mind flex that kind of got us onto this? For me, it would probably be learning that that's not all there is to nutrition. And then talking about number 5 too, community is so huge, but I think most important to that would just be finding the right community, because I've been a part of friend groups and so-called communities that left me feeling worse after hanging out with them than I did before hanging out with them. So I think taking an honest look at the people you have around you, if you're someone that constantly feels that you're anxious or your social battery is drained after hanging out with your friend group, then it might be time to reevaluate those people that you've chosen to be in your friend group. There were years at a time where most of my friends, me included, were potheads. We ate junk food. We didn't really think deeper on any level on anything. And
I bet you were thinking deep if you were a pothead, though.
No, I don't think we were thinking deep.
Or you thought you were thinking deep. Because most of the time, I remember being a pothead. I was in a pothead circle, too, in college, and it was like, actually, I don't think we thought deep, but
it's like
you sometimes have those thoughts where you're like, yeah, everyone doesn't have it figured out. We got it solved. Right.
Yeah, kind of. But it's like,
or it's just like, where are the Pop-Tarts?
Yeah, for my friend group, it was very much like, we thought deep about, like, how could we make the most epic pot brownies ever? And we would sit there for 2 hours brainstorming pot brownie recipes. But it's just like, the right community is so important. And I think realizing how you feel after you hang out with a certain group of people is that teller on if you're hanging out with the right people. When I first met the ATG community, I left the gym feeling the most inspired I'd ever felt, almost covered in goosebumps, excited about the next day. even though physically I was tired because we had just worked out, I was just so inspired by everyone I had met there, humbled, and like just to be in a room of people that are so smart, talented, and strong and healthy. And that's what drawed me into the community more than any other friend group I've ever met. So it's just, you kind of have to do the work to find that and to find people that inspire you after hanging out with them. And that's just my point on community. It can't just be any community. It has to be, and even I would even go as far as to say it can't just be like-minded people, because if you're not in the mental state that you want to be in, what good is it going to be to find like-minded people? If I had found a group of like-minded people 5 years ago, I'd still be where I was 5 years ago today.
You're more like-minded of what you envision, what do you want? Like, what are you chasing?
Exactly. Finding a group of people that are doing what you wish you could be doing. So, like, for me, when I met all of the ATG people, they didn't have knee pain, and they were very strong, and they could move their body weight through space, and they were healthy and glowing and tan, and like all these things that I thought was just not in the cards for my genetics. And just hanging around those people have showed me that is the case. You just have to work for it, and you just have to be around those people every day. Like you said, you're the product of your 5 best friends, and I have some pretty cool best friends.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that. I mean, I don't know how long you want to go with this, Ruben, but the idea of, join a Discord or a Telegram community. Like, that's the fastest, easiest way to find people who are maybe at a wavelength that you're at. You know, if you're feeling isolated, like you're doing all these things and the people closest to you aren't, you can create an environment, even if it's just listening to podcasts of people talking about this stuff. That's at least a start. But then we've all now experienced what it's like to have it in person. My first experiences were going to live events and being like, holy crap, there's just like, there's these people are real, and I can be friends with them in person, and they're like genuine and they're nice. And now we're living together. So how has the in-person stuff affected you guys? Because I know you both also, Andres and I have been traveling a lot, but you guys were stuck in a place where you didn't feel like you had that. Even though you had the online, it wasn't quite the same.
What's the question?
More like,
No, like, how has the in-person stuff impacted you? Because at one point we felt like we didn't have any.
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, it just motivated me to do better and to realize that what I want to achieve is 100% achievable. It's just about not giving up, you know, because just seeing so many other people do that and thrive and be of service to others and help other people. It's like, okay, well, that's what I want to do. It's not going to be an easy road, but as long as you don't give up and you keep going, you're going to get there eventually. Yeah, for me, it's just been that motivation, that drive, holding each other accountable, and seeing the work that it takes and seeing other people work hard just motivates me to work harder. When I was in Columbus, like, I felt so out of place because I was the only person that was like wanting more than where I was at. Everybody else is like, oh, I'm kind of happy with where I'm at, you know, like, oh, I'm working this job, I'm making, you know, 50 to 70,000 a year, and that's great. If I could find solace and happiness in that, I would probably be better off, because that's much more achievable than what I want to do, you know? Like, I want to have a homestead, I want to get off the grid, I want to help thousands of people, I want to build an online business that's making like 50,000 a month, you know, like, I want to do all these things that are much harder to achieve than what the people I was hanging out with are fine with doing, and they just weren't working towards those things, and I was just like out of place, because like they would invite me to parties and drinking, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to work on this. I want to go work out, you know, like, I don't want to stay up drinking anymore or smoking anymore. Those are the habits that I used to have before I had these other goals. And if you're not aligned with people that have similar goals to you, then you're only going to really be getting dragged down. Like, if it's people that want to escape reality, they're not going to help you bring your dreams into reality, you know? So you want to be around other people that have goals. If you have goals, you want to be around other people that have goals, because otherwise it's only going to stall your growth. You want to be around other people that give you that desire to improve. And I'm not saying like ditch your old friends. necessarily, because you might want those people when you do want to unwind. But if you keep going back to your old habits and just constantly unwinding, you're just spinning your wheels at that point.
Yeah, and I think I'll touch a little bit about this house situation and kind of how it became reality. And in a way, this is kind of the second house I've been a part of. The first one was, well, not counting my family house, but just finding, like Ruben was saying, the like-minded people, and then deciding to live together is a lot easier of a decision, especially when you're young and don't have kids or a family yet, than I think most realize. Like for us, it kind of all came together in a matter of, like, with the exception of Riley, because he was already there at the in Clearwater for a bit, came together in like 3 months from just an idea to a house with a really nice backyard and good environment. So whether you're still finding who these people are in your life or this community is, or you already have them and it's online, and that's becoming more and more common these days, or more and more people are meeting online, whether it's with the intention of meeting or it just sort of happens through things like Instagram, you have a lot of like-minded people online that are, just looking for not an escape, but something new. A lot of people in our communities are kind of isolated, where they have all of this big vision, but no one in their immediate radius is kind of on that same wavelength. So when you find these people, like, the possibility of living together and getting a house is a lot more attainable, and I would recommend starting with Airbnb. That's what Max and I did. Like, it takes all of a few button clicks to get a house, and then it's just about getting there, and then you're set. So it's it's a lot more attainable. Yeah, so during the traveling, I lived with Max and Josh in France for maybe a month or 6 weeks, and then we all went our separate ways. And then about six months later, reconnected with Josh in Croatia. We lived there for about 3 months, and it's all through Airbnbs. France was a family home, but yeah, there's a lot of really sweet benefits to some modern technologies and modern business models where you can get a house, like I said, just a few button clicks. It wasn't really possible 50 years ago. So start making those plans. If you have any sort of income that you can make, especially online, like, take that first step. When I first started traveling, I think my monthly income was $500. So it also kind of kicks you in the ass to get something going. But yeah, it's very attainable. And I think, if you want to touch on, like, how that was for you.
Yeah, because, Andre said me, Josh, and him were living in France, but I would say I wasn't even really living at that time. I was pretty much a vegetable. Not to go into too much depth, but that's been my story. So to wrap up all the, where do you start with health? Ruben said it best, that everything starts in the mind. And I've experienced the results where I know the knees over toes training ideas, and I know the nutrition that I think can help heal my body, and yet I'm depressed and my body hurts. So I think the mind, in my own direct experience, always is the centerpiece. And some people already have a semi-decent start there. So focusing on the nutrition and focusing on the movement is the best place to start. However, I think there's probably a good percent of people who are actually going to benefit in terms of thinking, like, leverage-wise, highest leverage, focusing on the mind. And the reason I bring that up right now is because I was watching a video last night that Keegan put on the Scale Solutions call for their Uncommon Success, and it's about how 95% of learning is through the environment. So when you're a child, like we were talking about kids earlier, the kids are just learning by being around their parents. Whatever their parents are doing, they're going to be doing. Not even what they tell them. It's just what are they doing? And this is why I think living environments are essential to actually pursuing whatever you want. Like Ruben said, goals, but health. If we're centering on health, like if you're not around healthy people, then your mind is working towards mirroring the people around you all day. So your environment's working against you, basically. And I personally think any environment's better than no environment, because I've experienced what isolation is, and intentionally, personally, just like isolating myself from people because I felt so depressed and things like that. I think if you're so isolated, then making friends with anybody at some level is a good idea. Like just getting yourself out there. But the idea of having an in-person environment where you're maybe also not the guy, or you're not the legend in the group. So if you're already like pretty healthy, try to join a gym where you're the weakest person. That's something that Keegan kind of mentioned, like get around 5 strong guys if you want to get strong. That's why I moved out to Florida to begin with. I was like, can't think of a better gym to join than the ATG gym, where everyone going there is jacked out of their minds, and I'm going to be the weakest person. And now living in a house with you guys, I look up to all of you guys. I don't think I'm smarter than any of you. I learned from Andres' arm size for sure. And no, I mean, like living with a guy like Andres, like he talked about how that key idea of like being open to new ideas. That's the biggest thing I've learned by being around him, is he is the most open-minded guy on like that I've met, to be honest. Like of all the people I know, he's probably the most open-minded person who's willing to learn new things and change beliefs, probably because he comes from this vegan background where he had to make that big switch in his but I guess to go back to what the question or topic was, is community. It's you're going to mirror, like there are actually mirror neurons in your brain that copy the people around you. So whatever you need to do to surround yourself with better people who are more aligned with where you want to go, make it happen.
And then I'll touch one more thing about, you were saying any environment or any like social group is better than none, because we've all probably experienced the complete isolation, loneliness, and that's for most people not ideal. I know of a couple people that actually kind of thrive in that, maybe temporarily, but also I think a big thing, and this doesn't just apply to community, applies to every one of the 5 pillars we talked about. Like, don't let it become your crutch. That's kind of how I got into with the thinking I need to buy organic, and it became a crutch where it's like I would eat non-organic apple and I'd be like, I'm gonna die, this is gonna kill me. And that can apply to anything. Like if you are listening to this and now you think like, shoot, my family seemingly sucks, my friend group seemingly sucks, I need a new friend group, and then you're using that word need, and now you can't do anything else because you don't have a new friend group yet, using it as a crutch rather than the beneficial side.
Yeah. I think, and maybe I'd be curious to hear what the rest of you guys think too. This could almost be like a 6th pillar, and it's to not take yourself so serious. Like this, essentially we're laying out the guidelines to a game of health. Like, and one of the things, I think it's Alan Watts that's like, games are best played when you forget it's a game. But when you get into that mentality where Andres is saying like, oh my God, now I got to get rid of these people, I got to get rid of my family or my friends, like now you're in this very competitive mentality where you're not having fun anymore, and then life is so serious, and at the end of the day it is just a game, and it's so much more fun when you don't get so wrapped up in that was a big part of my own story, was just getting so rules based that I can only do this and I can never break this, and at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, then none of this is even worth pursuing. I don't know if you guys have experienced anything similar, Ruben, Tiff, like how taking yourself, like being able to not be so hard on yourself and letting go and not being so wrapped into the world that you lose the fun of it.
Yeah, I really like the way you put that. I can't say I've thought of it exactly like that. I do kind of prefer your way of looking at things when it comes to that, because how I've always looked at it, especially since joining ATG, is I've learned how to look at every single thing as like a scale almost. So like with nutrition, if you're like all the way over here, standard American diet, and then here's like optimum eating, if you go from standard American to like 10 points up, that's the oatmeal and chia seeds, that's amazing. That's a win. You know, you've improved to some extent. So just applying that to everything, you can even apply that to community. If you meet one person at a local yoga class that you really connect with, you don't necessarily have to change your whole friend group. That's a start. You've met one person that you really align with, and you can apply that principle to everything. And I think that's made it so much easier for me to make progress in many different areas of life, is not being so all or nothing about things. You can make small, tiny steps and be proud of that and celebrate that win, so that you can then build momentum for the next win and the next step on this journey. And that's usually how I look at it, is everything is a scale. And it doesn't matter where you are on that scale, you can improve.
Yeah, you're familiar with Stoicism?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like looking at everything through the lens of acceptance. Just whatever happens, okay, it's happening. Try not to feel any certain way about it. I would say mentally, everything is vibration, right? Especially emotions. If you look at something and and you deem it negative, you're already putting a negative vibration on it. You're already kind of causing yourself to focus more on the bad, and it's only going to make things worse. So you want to look at everything with acceptance, like, oh, my friend group isn't the best right now. It's just my friend group.
But they're still your friends.
Yeah, I'm learning lessons from them. Everything that's happening with me spending time around them is meant to happen, and it's going to help me get to where I want to be, whether it's learning a lesson or it's simply improving me as a person. Okay, you want to look at everything on the positive side, because you have two options. You can look at it negatively, you can look at it positively, and that's what you start to realize when you look at everything through the lens of acceptance. So through using like Stoicism, it's just like choosing. Once you master like being able to accept everything that's happening in your life, you can then start choosing to focus on the positive, and that's only going to attract positive things into your life, because then you'll start having more energy. You'll mentally placebo yourself into thinking that everything that is happening for you is meant to happen for you. You're going to have more of a pronoia as opposed to paranoia, where you think you're playing the victim. Instead of playing the victim, you can start to play the hero in your story, and you can go, everything that is happening to me is happening for my benefit, and it's only going to lead me towards my purpose. It's only going to help me achieve all of my goals. All these lessons, I'm going to learn from them. I'm going to use them to improve my life, to improve the life of those around me, to be of better service, and that's only going to raise your own vibration. So
ultimately, it's like full responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, don't be a victim, be a hero.
Yeah.
Same ideas. You come to the realization that you created your reality.
Yeah.
So you can't be a victim in the reality that you created.
Exactly.
If you have sicknesses and things like that, and it's easy to play the victim, there's a lot of reason to say that you actually did create that through your thinking, through your actions, through whatnot. So the only way I found to actually make progress is by actually finally realizing this is actually where I'm at right now, and this is how I can start moving forward.
Yeah, acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can choose whether to make it good or bad. There's a quote by David Henry Thoreau that's most men live lives of quiet desperation.
Mm-hmm.
You heard that one before?
Yeah.
And I would say that's the case for a lot of people, but as like spiritual beings on this earth, we start to realize that we're meant for so much more than just having a 40 hours a week job where we barely get to see our children or get to enjoy life. And eventually you just realize that you can do so much more. The only thing that's stopping you from getting more out of life is your own mentality, putting limits on yourself and thinking that you can't do better than the current job you have, thinking that you can't improve your physical abilities more than what God has given you. It's like we set all these limiting beliefs on ourselves, but they're literally just to make us detach from reality instead of taking ownership over our own reality. It's just like, oh yeah, I feel happy, but do you really? Are you actually satisfied with what you have? And if you are, that's amazing, but you may just not have realized that you're destined for so much more than what you already have, and we're being limited by many of the things that are set in place. And once you realize that, you really have two options. It's like, okay, do I accept this, or do I do everything I can to improve my situation. I mean, that's kind of like Keegan's version of looking at things versus that one guy. What's that Instagram page that's always like, oh yeah, it's okay to like have this or whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
No. Oh yeah, there's like a guy that's basically kind of saying that the 9 to 5 it's okay.
Yeah,
it's
who's
okay to
that
come
guy?
home and drink your beers and do nothing and watch Netflix and be lazy. Like she's trying to accept that the modern way of living is good. Basically, that's what you're pointing at.
Yeah.
I forget what it's called, but something that I was gonna add on just as a framework that one of the first friend that I ever had that kind of exposed my mind to new ideas told me was, I asked him, are most people like happy? Because it seems like a lot of the people I know, like I go to the gym with or I see, like they seem pretty happy. They have like these jobs and they seem like they're, they have their family and now they got kids or they're adults. And he told me most people maybe they're a 6 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10 on the happiness scale, but they don't realize that the scale goes to 100. So they're capped at their thinking that I am happy. They do tell themselves that they're happy, but they just haven't been exposed to the realization of what the potential for fulfillment and happiness is.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to, and I'm not claiming to know the perfect definition, but like what is happiness and is happiness the goal? And there's also that movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, and I watched it when I was really, really, really young, so I wasn't like, crazy into understanding what was happening. But I think the pursuit of happiness is almost what leads to the lack of it. Well, I was actually kind of almost going to say the opposite, but like it's pursuing something that brings you joy.
Yeah.
It's like being under a super heavy squat and failing it isn't like no one would really describe that as happy. Like you're just like trembling on the way down, like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. Like that's not a happy feeling, but you come out of it like, I'm really glad I did that. But you're like pursuing something that maybe currently isn't attainable. I'm not saying that's like the entire definition, but
That's how you frame it.
Yeah, like it's the pursuit of anything, whether it's financial or a relationship or like I personally love building things. Like the building of something isn't happiness. It's like I'm building something and that brings me joy. And I don't know how to put it into words, but I think to just be happy is not in my belief, the purpose of why I'm here. I'm not here to just be happy from like the second I wake up to the second I go to bed. Like there's meant to be struggle, whether it's working on the computer or working out, or it's July in Florida and you've got 10 pounds of oranges in your backpack and you're sweating balls on the way home. Like there's something about that is like, I'm alive and this kind of sucks, but I'm alive. That I think is what I enjoy. It's not about being happy at every single waking second.
Yeah, bro. Miley Cyrus said it best.
I don't know what she
the
said.
climb.
It's the climb.
Yeah, it's all about like finding joy in the struggle.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I think
it's not
that
always
that because when you brought up pursuit of
Not
happiness,
always.
my first thought was the pursuit of happiness could lead to the lack of happiness, and I know you said you were going to say the opposite, but I think the idea was the same, that like it's about how you perceive the journey that ends up. It's all in the perception, because most people, the trap is that if you are living for the end results, then you're not living.
But if you're living for the pursuit, then you are living.
Yeah, so you need to have the end result that you want to go towards, but realize that it's actually the now that, and I think Ruben's probably figured that out more than anybody of figuring out, like the power of the now, right? That's huge. That's why you got into meditation. That's breath work. That's so many of the things that you're kind of obsessed with is the present. The present's kind of everything.
The present moment, yeah.
Whether the present is joyous or struggle, it's the present. Yeah.
Well, God is in the present moment, in a way. Something that came to me while I was on a mushroom trip. But
Maybe a good place to end it.
yeah, perception is reality. Like 100%. And if you can perceive that you already have what you want, and you can feel that with your emotions and your thoughts, and really visualize that, you can attract that future to you much quicker than if you keep thinking like, oh, this is going to happen in a year. It's going to happen in 2 years. It's like, no, you want to. Joe Dispenza is the one that talks about all this.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
make your perception your reality by realizing that perception is reality. All right, guys, that is going to be it for episode 1 of the Physical Freedom Podcast. If this is helping you move towards your own physical freedom, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop it in the comments if this was a little bit too far out of the way for you, or just any thoughts that you have. We'd love to hear back from you guys. And yeah, join us for the next episode. What should the next episode be about?
I guess we'll have to wait to find out.
Yeah, we don't know. We're not the person that
Yeah, next episode we'll dive more into movement and how you can start going back, how you can empower yourself to go back into your own physical freedom. Make sure you comment below what body part you're dealing with, or if you are in pain, or if you simply just want to improve your performance on the field or get back to sport.
Yeah, I'm struggling with my left glute.
Oh, I got you.